Mary asked me to be this week's host. We have 40 paintings for critique, and then at the end of the session, if we have enough time, we'll take questions to give to Christina, or if I can answer something, or Mary. So before I get started, Mary gave me some announcements to make. So I just want to read these quickly. First of all, we'd like to thank Virginia Ferrante Igboal for making a commitment to edit and make these recordings available on our YouTube channel. You will receive an email with the link later this week. So thank you, Virginia. Second of all, next Saturday, our guest artist, Scott Tallman Powers, has agreed to come back again for another virtual paint out and critique. The weather appears to be better, so hopefully most people will be able to get out and do plein air painting. If not, paint from your windows, paint from a photograph that you took outside as a reference, and submit it by next Friday at 5 o'clock. So that's next Saturday. The following Sunday, April 26th, I'm going to read this verbatim. Nancy King Mertz is doing a workshop via Zoom for plein air painters of Chicago, members only. The workshop is called The Art of Framing for Shows and in the Field. She will do a brief overview of the fundamentals of framing, and each of you are invited to submit an image of a painting, and she will show us 3 options for framing it. Sometimes I wish you had more copies of certain paintings to sell. Ron Mertz will, what does this mean? Sometimes I wish you had more copies of certain paintings to sell. Ron Mertz will take a few minutes to talk about how to go about making a good G-clay. So how to do prints. He's very good at that from your paintings. Registration is required for this, and there's a $15 fee. So how you pay for that, email Mary, and she'll get back to you on that. The workshop is posted on Facebook, and a second email will go out early this week. And the last announcement is something that I'm going to do next Tuesday. I'm going to be sending everybody out a Zoom invitation, and it's going to be called a Plein Studio Paint-In. Instead of plein air, we're doing Plein Studio. And that comes from when I took a workshop in Italy years ago. One of the participants say, well, I really don't do plein air, I do Plein Studio. So I'll read this just quickly. During these challenging times, it's more difficult to get out and paint together. So as an alternative, join me in this Zoom session where we will paint from the same reference photo. I will post the reference photo at the start of the session, and we will have 2.5 hours to paint our version of it, any size, medium format you like. I will choose the picture from my photo reference library that offers a variety of subject matter. You can use all the photo reference for your subject or just paint part of it. Treat this painting session as if you were painting in the field and really painting plein air. The good news is the light won't change and bathrooms are close by. So anyways, I hope you all can join me. That's going to be Tuesday. There's no charge for it. It's free for all PAPC members. After the 2.5 hours of painting, we'll spend 30 minutes and we'll go through a few paintings, and I'll critique them, and we'll talk about them, a little bit of show and tell, a little bit of critique. And then nobody will know what the image is until we start the painting. So it's just going to be like going out on site. You won't be able to do any preliminary sketches, before the session starts. This is almost, like plein air painting. And that's the whole idea of it. And so I'll be picking out a photo. I will say this photo that I have in mind has trees, water, and a skyline in it. So that's all I'm going to tell you. Figure it out. Okay, so that being said, those are the announcements. And let's see. Okay, so I want to welcome Christina Body, who is one of the founding members, along with Scott, of the PAPC. She's a longtime plein air painter and studio painter. She's done a lot of teaching. She's had many shows. She's a great person, great painter, and we're happy and appreciative for her taking the time to go through these paintings. The critiques are so important. And I just remind everybody, stick around for all the critiques. After your critique is over, I know there's a tendency for some people to leave, but listen to everybody's critique, because there's a lot to be learned from critiques. It's one of the most important ways that we can all become better painters. And that's how a lot of our longtime members became better, by listening to Scott's critiques and many of the other, good painters we have. So Christina, welcome. And I understand you're going to be focusing on atmosphere today and atmosphere perspective. So if you could talk a little bit about this and some other things you'll be looking for in the paintings.
Okay, great. Thanks, Errol. Thanks for the nice introduction. I appreciate it. And thank you, everybody, for asking me to critique this week. It's an honor. I briefly went through the paintings earlier this morning, and it's an amazing group of work and so many paintings. So it seems like everybody's very busy, even though the weather has not completely broken yet. So great group. Great to see that the group is so active. Okay, so yes, as Errol mentioned, I would sort of like to focus on aerial and a little bit of linear perspective as kind of my focus. But then I will, I'm sure, venture off track and mention some other things as I critique along the way. But I would try to just focus on that, because I do feel like if a critique has too many critiques, too many things, suggestions, that it sometimes could confuse people, and it's better just to kind of stick to one point and learn, or try to understand that and then move on and try other things maybe another time. Too much at once can be confusing, I think. So atmospheric perspective is the perspective in which you paint through various layers of the atmosphere. So the atmosphere is these layers of gases, and things in the foreground would tend to be more clear, sharper. They would tend to have higher chroma, maybe warmer. And then as things recede in the distance, they tend to be less clear, softer edges, and typically cooler, but not always. So that in itself helps a viewer, when they're looking at your painting, helps the viewer to see the depth in your painting, or it enhances the depth of your painting. Now, linear perspective is the way things are scaled in your painting. So an easy example of that is people walking down the street. So someone close to you obviously is going to be much bigger, and then people farther away are going to be much smaller. So that's always an important thing to remember when getting the beginning of your painting in, is trying to get the scale more accurate, and being aware of that when you're painting. Okay, so that all being said, I really want everyone to know that this critique they're my suggestions and my opinion. And I want you to know that an artist has an intention when they paint a painting, and the person critiquing doesn't always know that intention. So you can take my suggestion or leave it. They're just there from my point of view. And if your intention was something totally different, then you should just go with it. And you're the artist, and not let me, change up your idea too much. Okay. So, okay, I'm going to start. Is that all right? Get going?
Yes. Can you hear me, Christina?
Yeah, I can.
Okay, yeah, go ahead and start.
Okay. Did I miss anything, or is that...
No, everything's great.
Okay. Okay, so this is Jean's painting. I love this. It's I think it's an amazing still life setup. I think it's unique. I like the fact that she took the time to, I don't know if she set this up on her own or if it's actually like this in her house, but it's a great subject. And it looks like it's about, what size is this? Is this maybe a 16 by 20? Size looks great. What I'd like to mention about this, regarding aerial perspective, is when I look at this piece, I'm going to use, can everybody see my cursor?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to use this, I think, a lot today. It will help show you what I'm saying. So talking about aerial perspective, what I see from the reference here, I see a shape around her subject. So the lamp cuts in here, the table like this, but around the lamp is this big abstract shape, which is the window and the outdoors, outside. So if I were to paint this painting, I would hone in on that abstract shape as part of my composition. So when you come here, I would see this as one big shape that's much farther away than my subject. And I think that would help create more depth in this piece, and bring the lamp and the horse sculpture closer to the viewer. So by doing that, I would either lighten a lot that's in the background, because here we have the green in the grass is similar to the green in the horse sculpture. And that to me is competing, where I feel like if the green outside the window was a little bit cooler and lighter, it would really push this area of the painting further away from us and bring the lamp and the horse and the still life subject closer to us. So, and same thing with the picket fence. It's sort of competing. You have these beautiful lines in the lamp and this beautiful work here, detail work, which is so nice. But I tend to look more at the fence rather than your subject matter because of these vertical lines here. So you don't have to, I wouldn't get rid of them completely, but I would definitely lighten them and to push them back and maybe soften all of those edges so that the viewer is more focused on the lamp. But great painting. I think it's a challenging still life and a very nice one, very nicely executed. Okay, is that okay? Was that, Errol, good?
Yeah, keep on moving. We have a lot of paintings, so keep moving on.
Okay, am I good on time?
I'll keep you posted.
Okay.
One thing I want to tell everybody is there won't be any time for interaction between the artist and Christina.
Okay.
So Christina will just go through the paintings.
Okay, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, unless you have a specific question, but we don't want to get into conversations.
Okay, all right.
Great.
Steve, Steve's painting is awesome. I love this piece. I don't have much to critique because I just think it's a beautiful painting. But what I'd like to say is I'd like to talk about the things that I think relate to my focus today. So Steve's trees in the foreground, do you see how some of the sharpest edges are right here in the foreground, which if you squint and look at this painting, the first thing you see are those trees. They are in silhouette and they're cooler, which is that was the intention of this painting, that it has a back glow, either a sunrise or maybe I think a sunset. But if you squint, you can see how the sharpest edges and the most chroma and the deepest colors are in the foreground. And then all the other colors and the edges soften and fade as you go back into the distance. So this is a beautiful example of atmospheric perspective. See back here, look at how this tree, it's like, it has almost just blended into the background, but it still reads as a tree. And that's because it's such a soft juxtaposition against these very sharp trees in the foreground. So this is a beautiful painting and a great example of what I'm talking about today. Okay, Muriel Christensen. Okay, I love this painting. This is super exciting, something that I would really like to paint, and I think I've painted actually a couple times. This piece, I love the mood. I love all of the loose brushwork. The texture's great in the foreground, even under here. It's the loose style is very interesting. What is standing out to me with this is the first thing is the Chicago sign. Because everything is so loose, I feel like this is a little too sharp. Maybe I would have softened a few edges just to have it read more like it's glowing. See like how you did here? These lights are glowing, and look at how soft the edges are here. I would soften this up a little bit to kind of also get the same similar type of a glow as you have here. Also, it's a very warm painting with a cool background, but I would have reserved some of my warms or really hot spots for designated areas. So there's so many hot spots that it's for me it's a little too many, and I would have maybe left my hot spots more in this area where the marquee is and where the street light is, and maybe these can still be warm in the street, but I would say cool them off a little bit because they are farther away. Then the viewer's eye will stick more right here in this area. But super cool painting, love it, love all the soft edges.
Christina?
Yeah?
Christina, can you hear me?
Yep.
You know, I've got a question. On your computer, this is your computer screen, where the image is, right?
Yeah, uh-huh.
Is that image filling the whole screen on your computer?
It's filling 3/4 of it. I have a little white bar with the plein air painters comment.
Can you make the image bigger?
I don't know how to get rid of this white.
It's big on mine though. I think. On my screen.
Okay, I was just wondering, Mary, is this okay? So we got to keep the white bar, I guess, right? You can't.
Yeah.
Okay. You can't drag from the bottom of it of the screen and make it.
Because your iPad's too small.
Let me see.
Okay. Okay. We leave it like it is, I guess. It's fine. It's fine.
I can't get rid of that for some reason.
Yeah. So you're expanded as far as you can. It's fine.
I have it on expanded view, but for some reason I can't get rid of this white.
Yeah.
Can you see this? Is it one of those?
No, it's fine. And I just thought we could get the actual image bigger.
Up at the top of mine, excuse me, it says view options, and it can drag down.
It looks full screen on mine.
Yeah. Christina, go ahead. Just continue on. It's fine.
It's full screen on mine as well. It
Okay.
completely fills the screen vertically.
Okay, okay.
Okay.
Okay, good. All right.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Leave it as it is.
Okay.
Okay,
This
great.
piece, Sandra, I love this. I love,
You can make it bigger on your screen.
is that okay? Can you, all good? Hello?
Yeah, you're good. Go ahead.
Okay, okay.
We're good.
Okay.
So, okay, this piece is great. I'm probably not the best watercolor critique artist because I don't work with them a lot, but I think this is a beautiful little painting. I appreciate the design. It's a great composition. I like the excitement of watercolor because it's so free and it sort of does what it wants. So it's sort of abstract. I like that. One thing that I would say is maybe it seems that there is a lot of similar color in areas. Maybe since this tree is closer, I would have varied the color a little bit and the value from the building a little bit more, not a lot, just a little bit. Maybe the foreground shadows slightly. I like these branches. I think that's kind of cool, but you could have also clumped them maybe together a little bit more and made bigger shapes. But I sort of like this because it kind of goes with the style, the very linear, gestural sort of drawing style. So I guess, yeah, strengthening the shadows a little, maybe strengthening a little bit of the depth in these spaces so that they recede a little bit further. But it's a great little painting. I like it. I think good job. It's a nice one. Okay. Is this Khan? Am I pronouncing that right?
It's Kuhn.
Kuhn, okay. Hi, Kuhn. I love this piece. It's so interesting. Beautiful painting. This is a great, I think this is has some great examples of atmospheric perspective in it. If you see back here, look at all that atmosphere. I mean, this area is just receding so far back into the distance. These mountains, you can tell, are very far away. So this was treated excellent. I really like that a lot. I love the light here is beautiful. I think that's, if you squint, there's a lot of focus on where the light is on this hill and on this woman here and her child. One thing that I noticed that I would maybe consider is that it looks like all of the green that Kuhn is using is similar all over the painting. I would vary the greens a little bit. For example, the greens in the foreground, talking about atmospheric perspective again, the greens in the foreground would be warmer and more intense. And then as you go back in space, the greens would be less intense. They would even have a little bit, maybe of blue or violet in them, and lighter. So these trees are great. I love their shape. They're very unique. It describes a place, but they're a little too intense for me, considering we're using the same greens here. And same with here. I would think of it as in 3 steps. Number 1 is most intense, most brilliant color. And then step 2 would be a little bit lighter, a little less intense, a little bit of blue or violet. And then step 3 is the furthest farther back, even another layer of less intensity, less chroma in these greens. And then the only other thing is when we squint, the darkest dark typically is the darkest dark and lightest light are typically at your focal point, and I would guess that that's going to be like right in here somewhere. And so there's a very dark. This tree trunk here is competing with these darks right here in this woman with her child in the foreground. So I would have not a lot, but I would have just lightened this tree trunk up a little bit to push it further back in space. but great piece, super interesting. Love the composition. Awesome job. Okay, this is Robin. Hi, Robin. I love I love all the soft edges in this. It's very hard to do for some people. I'm one of them, so I really appreciate all the softness in this painting. One thing that I would consider doing is, again, talking about greens. Greens are kind of nutty, and especially greens right out of the tube. People I think can become dependent on green out of the tube. So this painting, I would have maybe tried to make some greens myself, mix more green from ivory black and cad yellow light makes a nice green. Yellow ochre and ivory black make a cool green, or not cool, but interesting green. And so here, to create more atmosphere, the greens in the background should be less warm than the greens in the foreground. So it's just a shift. So whatever we're using here in this foreground, you can take those same puddles of color on your palette and you can alter them to get a little bit cooler and a little bit bluer here, and then alter this puddle again to get a little bit cooler, bluer, and lighter as you go further back. Excuse me 1 second. Okay, ask Dad. I can't. Sorry, I have kids. Sorry. Okay, so as I was saying, I would go take it in steps as the greens go further back in the distance, cooler, lighter, a little bit of blue or violet. And then in the foreground, I would put some sharp edges here. Then this will read, this bush, and this, I think it's a rock right here, it will come forward a lot better for the viewer if we have a couple sharp edges, and then it will make the background seem farther away. But great, cool painting, really like it. Awesome. Okay, this is Nancy. Oh, I love these, I love this. Very nice, super cool painting. I looked at this earlier today. This is a great example, I think, of composition. Nancy, if you squint and look at this painting, her composition is holding so solid as one, her subject is just one big massive shape. And that is a huge success. And I think I try to work on this all the time. And I think everybody who's learning how to paint should try to focus and learn how to do this. But when you squint, do you see how this is all just one shape? And it all holds together from, it's separated from the background. So that is awesome. And then even within this shape, she's created atmospheric perspective, because look at how dark and rich these colors are in this first structure. But then as we go, like I said, one step back, it has become cooler and lighter. And then another step back here, even lighter and softer edges. So it reads in those steps, and it still reads as one big shape, which compositionally is right on. It's amazing. One thing that I don't, it's hard for me to critique Nancy's work because she's amazing. But I think if I was painting this painting, the only thing that I would have done different is, and it might just be from the photograph, but these real dark darks, I don't know if it's ivory black or if it's ultramarine with alizarin, I'm not sure, but it seems that the same value and color is used in these, in the docks as it is in the water. And I probably would have made the water a slightly lighter value and a slightly lighter color. Maybe I would have changed the color a little bit, but I would have kept it a dark shape because it is a dark reflection from that structure. But that's really, I think that's it. I love it. It's a great piece. Awesome. Okay. Jerry. Hi, Jerry. I love perfect painting for the season. Daffodils, I think. They're daffodils, I'm pretty sure. I love this piece. It's great. It's, I love the composition. You've really captured the shape of these flowers really beautifully. I like sometimes, you know, people who critique would say, you know, don't always put something right in the center, but this is one of those, it's like a portrait. It's a portrait of this flower, so I think it can definitely be right in the center. Oh, sorry. The only thing I would have done a little bit different was the warm colors in the foreground are competing with me with the warm colors in the background. So in order to push this background a little further away, you have very beautiful soft edges, so that's great. But I would have cooled it off a little bit, maybe a little bit lighter and a little bit cooler to kind of lay the ground down, flatten it out a little bit. But other than that, I mean, you've got your sharpest edges are in your focal point, your brightest chroma. It's a great piece. I really like it. Oh, and there's the reference photo. So yeah, even if you see in the reference photo, the colors, it is all sort of this brownish sienna ochre color. But as you go further back, I'm seeing some violets in there. So I would lighten up and add a little violet with those siennas to kind of make that space go further back in space. Okay, Patricia, hello. This is your reference photo, and then here's your painting. Okay, okay. So nice piece, challenging piece with all of these trees. It's a lot to paint there, but I think I like the composition. I think that's really great. I like the path going into the distance here. What I think I would have done different is if you look in the reference photo, we have some trees that are kind of standing alone, but then we have trees that are more clumped together. I think it would help your painting to make some bigger masses of shape of trees, maybe in certain areas. So sometimes when we're painting a plein air painting, we're allowed to move things. Some people think that we have to paint it exactly how we see it. And I even do that. I make that mistake a lot. And I'm like, oh, shoot, I'm allowed to, like, you know, artist prerogative. I can do whatever I want. So you have the say in taking a bunch of these trees and making one big shape out of them back here. So then it would create more of a focal point and more interest for the trees in the foreground. So if we go back to the reference, oh, wait, this way. Yeah, clumping all of this into one shape would be really cool. And then what I would have done is gone back into this shape with paint and broken up that shape with some sky color, just like a little bit of sky here, a little bit of sky there. So then it would be more of an abstract shape, but it would still read as trees, soften the edges, and then your focal point trees would really stand out and sort of be the star of the show, wherever you want them to be. So that's what I think would help that painting, if that's what you think you want to do. And then the greens could get cooler as they go back as well, because we see the same chroma in the foreground as we do in the background.
Hey, Christina, there was a question in the chat about, you suggested mixing some greens, different ways to mix greens. You were talking about black. Could you just go over some of those mixtures?
Okay, so a basic one, which is like my old standby, is ivory black and cad yellow light. And that makes a really natural, neutral, basic green, which I use all the time. And then if I have to, pump it up a little bit, I can add some Viridian, also ultramarine blue and cad yellow light makes a more intense green. Let's see, adding white to any of those would lighten them up. Those are probably pretty much the colors that I use to make my greens. And then I always try to, mix whatever you make for your foreground green, make sure you're mixing some of that into your background green so that you stay harmonious. You don't want to have different puddles of greens for your paint. You want to kind of, blend them into each other a little bit, or, use a little bit from each puddle to kind of hold all the greens together.
Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Okay, sure. Okay, this is a great little painting. I love this. So is this it looks like someone's house. It's also a watercolor. I like, it's a cool composition. I like the big shape here, the big sky shape. I like the big foreground shape here. And this is a center of interest. And sometimes I think the center of interest right in the middle works. And in this case, I think it does, because to me, this would be a portrait of a house in a landscape. So that doesn't bother me at all. I think it's cool. The same thing I've kind of been noticing in some of the other paintings is the greens here. So I would definitely make this foreground shape one big shape, and it would, in my, if I was painting it, this would be this whole shape would be, well, it would have subtle changes in the back, but it would be one massive shape of one color. So of a warmer green, I would have more detail in this. And then as it recedes back, you can add some cooler color as it goes back here. But then these trees in the background, I would even have, they can still be green, but cooler greens because they are farther away than the foreground grasses. You know, when I'm painting, our brains are constantly telling us what everything is. Our brain says, oh, well, that's a tree with a lot of leaves on it, and they are green. And as artists, I've learned that I have to try to turn my brain off and just try to let myself see. And when you look at a tree, if you can put your head between your legs and look at a tree upside down, you'll see it completely different. And I noticed that trees have so much more color in them than our brain is telling us. So in these trees, I mean, there's bright yellows, there's violets, there's light blues. So there's a lot of variation in green that I think artists miss, or when they're starting out, that and the more you do it, the more you paint and the more you see, you'll notice those differences in trees and bushes and grass. So this is a really cool piece. I would just, like I said, I like the detail and the texture in the front. I think that's great. I like the soft edges in the back. I would just cool this off a little more with some blue greens. Okay, I think this is Elizabeth, hello. This is right near Buckingham Fountain, I think. So, okay, let's see, here's our reference photo. Great, cool scene, love it, nice big shapes. I like the structure here. Okay, so this painting is also a watercolor. I think it was a challenge with all of these interesting shapes. I like that there's people in here. That's really cool. Gives life to the painting. When I squint, I can see this big shape and the trees, which is nice. I think what I would have done in this painting is I like the way you handled these trees. You kept it more as a big shape, and the leaves are in clumps. You know, you weren't painting every leaf. You did some stippling here, which is cool because it softens the edges around the tree. Here, though, I would have really softened these more because I think these trees are further behind these, and so to me, even though I like this that it reads as one shape, but with atmospheric perspective, these would be softer edges. They would be a little bit fuzzier and a little cooler and a little lighter. So I'd maybe soften that up a little bit. I like that there is a bright light here. I like the foreground light. That's nice. Maybe I like the texture in the foreground. Actually, I like that. I think it's fine. Maybe a few little highlights for the flowers because we saw some highlights, just a few, just to suggest those daffodils would be kind of cool. And then other than that, I like the shadow here. You could maybe it's a watercolor, so I think you can't. I don't know how it's hard to go back into this, but maybe soften. So for linear perspective, things would recede and get smaller, which they are, which looks great, but maybe soften a few edges of these trunks in the background. But great piece, I like it. Awesome. Okay, here's a reference photo. And then, okay, the painting. Awesome. This is really fun. I love all the loose brushwork here. That's great. Super cool. I like all the soft edges. I like that there's people here. Very nice. So maybe with this painting, you have some very good perspective in here. See how Marcy, how it's lighter back here, and there's a very soft edge where the water meets the background, the trees. That's really beautiful. These violets are very beautiful. So this painting, everything in the background, I have no critique on that because it's great. The only thing I think Marcy would have needed to do is maybe make some of her foreground greens warmer and greener, because I feel like that the violets in the foreground are competing with the violets in the background. So I would say in this tree, I like this dark spot, maybe a few more dark areas in the foreground and warmer and more green here. Even in the path, warmer right here as you enter this path, and then cooler as you go back. No, I'm sorry. No, that's that. Okay. Sorry. Okay, on to the next one. Okay. Deborah. Okay, awesome. Is there a reference photo with this one? Let me see. Oh, there is. Okay, good. Okay, all right. This painting is a great example of linear perspective. So see how these posts, these street posts recede back and get very, very small. I love that. So Deborah was very conscious of that. And that really helps the viewer go back into the space. So awesome there. I would like to see that a little bit more in these windows to squeeze, this scene, because it's going back and down this way. So I would see this line on these windows a little bit more. So you kind of trim those off a little bit so that it really makes this line a little more dramatic, going back into the distance there. The use of yellow here is, I think maybe try to have a little more control, because I feel like there's too much yellow all over. I would have reserved some of these hot yellows for your focal point, whether if your focal point was here or if your focal point is in the foreground. Pick one or the other. And one should be warmer and hotter, and then the other should be a little cooler, like a bit of a cooler yellow and toned down. So the intensity is I think too similar all over. So I love the street scene. I love the composition, but I would neutralize either this area or this area so that there's more of a focal point. Okay, let's see. Oh. Okay, I like this. This is similar to the painting we just saw with a street scene with perspective, deep perspective. This is cool. I like it. I like the expressiveness of this painting. I think there's some pretty. You have a good idea of perspective here, but we need to, I think, construct the drawing a little bit. Pay a little bit more attention in the beginning of your painting of your perspective lines. So if your vanishing point is about here, if you make a point, that's your vanishing point, and you actually put a dot on your painting, all the lines should stem from that point. And then that will help make your perspective a little bit more realistic. So that it could use a little tweaking there. And then I like that your tree is this one big shape. That's great. And then it's in the foreground, so it's the darkest. But this black, I think it's ivory black, is competing with this black. My eye is kind of like bouncing from here to there. So in cars, there's a lot of reflection in the windows of cars from the sky. Ooh. So I would keep that in mind and pay close attention to the glass on cars. There's always a little bit of blue or green on car windows. So reflecting from the sky, or colors reflecting from the buildings into those windows. So that would make this car feel a little further away if it didn't have this dark black area here. But other than that, I like the looseness. I like the composition, and maybe a little bit cooler in your background, and then a little bit more intensity of color in your foreground. Okay, good painting.
Christina, we have Christina.
Okay, yep, mm-hmm.
Is that me? Okay, you hear me now?
I can hear.
Okay, so there's a question in the chat about,
Okay.
it refers to the last painting, the yellow painting.
Okay.
The question was, how do you tone down the yellows?
Okay. Well, good question. Okay. So some of these things I just do intuitively, and I sometimes, it's hard to put into words. But what I would do is I would, you know, for example, if you were starting with, let's say your yellow was a yellow ochre, come up with a mid, like your mid-tone yellow. Like if there's a lot of yellow in this painting. So come up with the yellow that's the middle value yellow, okay? And then you can paint most of the scene with that mid color. Then from there, you can either cool it off with cooler colors, any cool color to cool it. You can add a little white to lighten it. But then also from that middle yellow puddle, you can intensify the chroma. You can add more intense, warmer colors to it. So it's sort of, it's an experiment. It's always an experiment, mixing colors and painting. And you wouldn't, so if you, for example, if you painted, this would be a good Zorn palette painting, which is, I think, ivory black, yellow ochre, cad red light, and white. And then just using those colors, starting from a middle value, you can intensify bright and light, and then you can go the other way with deeper values, darker and cooler. So does that make sense? Does that?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. Okay, I'll move along then. Okay, Barbara. Hi, Barbara. I love this. This is awesome. So Chicago. Okay, when I saw this earlier, the first thing I thought was awesome, you know, awesome composition, something I would like to paint as well. So kudos to you for that. I like, let's see, I like big shapes like this. So it's awesome. It's a nice big abstract. It's more of an abstract painting to me, which is interesting. But from the start, when I saw the reference photo, if I were to paint this, when I approach a painting, and not always because I make mistakes, but if I were approaching this today, I would look at this. Was this taken from a painting from a photo, or from life? I don't know, but
it was from life.
From life. Okay, so right off the bat, this whole painting to me is just like it has like a gray filter over it. So I would immediately set up with kind of like a gray thought process. And then from there, so I would kind of block everything in with a gray value range. And then as I got into the painting, I would then add some of these colors that you have. So to me, I think I love where you're going with this, but I would have maybe added, I would have had an all gray beginning and then put some of these pinks into that gray, laid some of these pinks as accent color on top of the grays, so that the whole painting so this whole shape would read more as one solid shape, but still be different because they, you know, because of because of the different bricks. You know, this is concrete, these are a different kind of brick. So you can show that they're different with little variations of color in there, but when you squint down, it's kind of one big gray shape. And then it's hard sometimes to see the contrast on a gray day in Chicago. But if you look here, this side of this part of the building is lighter than this side. So then when we go here, I would have pushed this a little bit cooler and the value a little bit darker than this side. Or you could bring this up. This could be lighter. It's pretty warm already, so maybe just lighter. Just subtle changes like that, subtle shifts will make this shape turn a little more. And then maybe soften this edge a little bit. I think, yeah, so this building right back here it's all the same color, but it has a value shift from one side to the other. And here, it's yellow, and then it's kind of a grayish white. I would have maybe made it all one color and then just shifted the value on either side of that building. But it's cool. I like it. I like where you're going with this one. I think it has a lot of potential.
Hey, Christina.
Yeah.
So we're through 15. We have about 40 paintings to go, and we're breaking in 10 minutes. So I'd kind of like to get 5 paintings done in 10 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't want to rush. I don't want to rush you too much. I know there's a lot to say, but
okay.
You don't do quite 5. You know, as many as you can do in the next 10 minutes.
Okay. Do we have 40 more?
No, 20 more.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Once we do 5 more, there's 40 altogether.
Oh, okay. Okay, great. So there's 5. So there's 25 more.
25 more, right?
Okay. Okay.
Right.
Great.
We could do 3 or 4 in the next 10 minutes. It'd be great.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. Here we go. Okay. This is the break at 1:15? Is that
Yes, 1:15, 5 minutes.
Okay. Okay. So this painting, I love this scene. This is a super cool scene. I love this subject. Hi, Julie. How are you? When I saw this one, the first thing that I thought of is great composition, great idea, very interesting. Love this bike in the foreground. Love the bike a little bit further away. What I would have done right off the bat is created this shape as my big foreground shape. So again, thinking abstractly, see here how the shadow of the tree, the bikes, and this tree make one big shape. And then it divides the canvas into 2 abstract shapes, this all being the background, and then this all being the foreground. And then like with Nancy's painting, if you think about what we talked about with Nancy's piece with the dock structure, this would hold together so beautifully as one big mass. And then this being treated as the background would be softer and have a lot of atmosphere. So what I would say, all of this should be a value darker, okay? And then this area lighter, like this tree, lighter, a little bit cooler. Well, this one could be, it's pretty close, so it doesn't have to be that cool, but lighter, because this is where your darkest area should be. And then the horizon line a little bit softer, blend that in with the sky. The value change is great. That's fine. Values are good, but just soften that up a little bit. And then this bike maybe could have been a little bit bigger to give you a little bit more of linear perspective, okay? But I love that composition. Awesome scene. Okay. This is cool. Someone tackled this. Susan. Hi, Susan. This is a super exciting painting. I've always wanted to, is this, I think part of out west, Grand Canyon, part of Grand Canyon, I'm not sure. But I love, you've got some really great perspective in here. I mean, my eye is definitely going back through into the painting. The first thing I saw with this was the foreground. See, look at all the texture in this foreground. And you don't have to paint it all, but this texture really helps with the atmospheric perspective in this painting, and that this is reading textural and close. And then probably these same little bushes are on these hills, but they're softer and lighter. So I think if you could have added some more textural shapes in the foreground, and you don't have to go crazy. It doesn't have to have as many of those little bushes as the photo, but just a few of them, or like a clump or a shape of them strategically placed, would then pull the viewer would then have an anchor in the foreground to lock onto, to then make the background seem further away. So you have a lot of similar brushwork and soft edges in the foreground as you do in the background. And it could be very subtle, because if you ideally want to just keep this a soft painting, that's fine, but maybe just a few harder edges in here to then help all of this recede. And then I would have maybe painted this very background area lighter, a little bit lighter. The violet is fine. I think that color is great, but a little bit lighter. Great, I love it though. Great, that's a great piece. Cool. Okay, is there a reference here? Okay, this piece, super cool. I love, great scene. I feel like I was just there the other day walking my dog, wherever that is, but it's similar. This painting, I love the composition. Got a lot in here. I'll talk about, I'm going to talk about the greens for atmosphere here. Same thing that I've mentioned in a few of the other ones is we're using some of the same value and the same color in the foreground as we are in the background. So I feel that this whole background area needs to be a little bit cooled down and a little bluer. Add a little bit of blue, lighten it up, cool it off. These rocks back here are painted beautiful. That's great. I love how loose they are. This tree is nice and soft. That's great. This tree, very soft, great. I like these hard edges. And I mean, this is your focal point. So I really think you did that very well, these hard edges, and this warm reddish tone on the bark is great. I think these rocks are fine, but again, rocks are kind of kooky too. They're not just gray. If the same with leaves and trees, there's so many variations in color in leaves and trees, but same with rocks. You'll tend to see violets and pinks and ochres. So maybe next time, look a little bit more at these rocks, and I think you could add some color from other areas of the painting into them to create some more dimension and give them a little bit more, they'll become more harmonious if we use some of the colors in the painting in the rocks a little bit more. But I like it. It's a cool piece. I like the waters painted very nice too. Great job.
Time for one more, Christine, before the break.
Okay. This is great. I love this painting. This was, wow, this was a lot to paint, and it's super exciting. I love all this brushwork, and the ducks are painted really nice. I love the water. I mean, look at all the color in this water. So very expressive, very aware of the variations of color and temperature. So great job on the water here. The ducks are painted beautifully. It's awesome. The thing that when I first saw it, that I noticed first was that this is a branch, you know, a log that has fallen in a branch. I don't know what your intention was for this painting. I don't know if it was the tree or log or if it was the ducks. But when I first saw this painting, I saw the log and the branches. And so if that is your intention, then good, then you got it. But if it was the ducks, then I would say that it's competing with the ducks. So I first saw this area, and then I was like, oh, then there's ducks in here. So if you're if in staying in line with aerial perspective, these branches and logs are behind the ducks, so they should be a little cooler, a little softer, and like this hard edge is behind these ducks. So for the viewer to have for it to read with better perspective, aerial perspective, there should be a harder edge and a darker edge somewhere in this area than here. This should be a little softer and not as dark. So that's what I would do. I would soften this up and lighten this area. So, and then make these guys the star of the show. All right, Anne. Hi, Anne. Cool. All right, I remember seeing this painting this morning. Let's see. So, great. I love this. I love these types of paintings. I love this perspective. I love looking down, bird's eye view. Very cool composition. So that's a great challenging piece to work on. What I noticed in your painting is working from black and white photos is challenging for me sometimes, because unless you are a very experienced artist, it's sometimes hard to use color correctly to make up color. I mean, I make up color a lot, but I often make a lot of mistakes while doing so. So, sometimes I get it right, but a lot of times I don't, and I'm scraping it off and trying again and trying again. So sometimes, I mean, it's fine that you're experimenting with it and you can go for that because that's how you learn. But if you're going for, like, what I would have maybe an idea for you when you approach a black and white photo next time is maybe think about it as a monochromatic painting. So just pick black and white, or pick two colors, red and white, or anything really, but just a dark and a light, and then approach it monochromatically to get the big shapes, to get, you want to break it up in this painting into shapes, and then paint in three values. Pick your darkest shape, your middle value shape, and then your lightest shape. Just using a monochromatic approach. Oops. Then after you have that, it's kind of like the base. It's like I kind of think of it as like the skeleton of the painting. Then go back in, and because you'll have your value structure set up, it's there. Then you can go back in with any color, because once your value structure is accurate, then you can put any color in as long as it's the same value. that you've already used. You can add color to it, and then you can have the warm or cool colors or add interest by using the color. But it's good to get those basic value structure in first. So that's a good idea for next time if you want to try that. Here in this painting, I would have softened up. We'll see, there's a building here, and I'm not sure. I would have maybe brought all of these buildings all the way to the edge. And then I think this is supposed to be sky here. I would have maybe lightened that up because you'd have buildings here, your buildings here, and then so to create atmosphere, a lighter area of, it can still seem like dark, like nighttime, but a little bit lighter. And then here, maybe a little bit darker value, and it could still be light down here because I know that's where there are some bright lights. But to give it more of dramatic lighting, a little bit darker value up here. And this, I think, is a little too dark. Maybe lighten up this value a little bit. Okay. All right, awesome. Cool composition. Okay, oh, I like this painting a lot. Let me, oops, sorry. Yes, this is super cool. Hi, Sharon. This is, I love how expressive this is. I love all your, it looks like it's, done with all palette knife. Yeah. So I love that the freedom, the expressiveness of a palette knife. Great texture. I mean, it's awesome. So I love that the tree is the star of the show, the focal point. That doesn't bother me at all. I think that's super cool. One thing that I would maybe mention is talking about greens and atmosphere. I think that this green is okay, but maybe add a little bit more violet as we go back into the, you have it here. It seems, I don't know if it's the photo or what, but here it doesn't seem like there's as much violet, but bring some of these violets over to here.
Okay.
And then, I love the texture, but maybe a little less texture in the background, just subtle. Because with all of the texture being the same, it's to me, it's flattening it out. But if that's the style that you're going for, then that's totally cool. Then you did it, you got it. But if you wanted to go for a little bit more atmosphere, I would just soften that texture in the background a little bit more so it's not the same as it is in the foreground. But I mean, edges are awesome. Love it. Look at, here's a great example of, look at all the color in a tree trunk. So, a lot of people just paint trees brown, but Sharon, obviously, she really went and saw a little bit deeper and saw beautiful color in this tree trunk and maybe even embellished a little on her own, and that's fine. That's great. So cool. Good job.
Thank you.
Okay, Lynette. Hello, Lynette. Oh, I like this painting. Super nice. Okay, here's her reference photo. Okay. So kind of a gray painting, but Lynette chose to pump it up and add color and really make it come to life compared to that photo. So super job on turning a gray photo into a colorful, realistic, impressionistic scene. So good job on that. I really like it. There's a lot of great, this painting's really great. So I wouldn't change much. The only thing that I was thinking that I would maybe change is maybe a few, let me back up. When you squint and look at this painting, the silos have the same value as the sky. So I feel like the silos are the focal point in this painting. You know, you've done that really well with this, your darkest dark, you know, a little bit here, but here, and then your lightest lights. So and here, darkest dark. So I'm going to assume that this is your focal point, and you've done a great job with that. But what's competing for me is that the sky and the silos are the same value. That and it's fine if you want to leave it this way, but to create a little bit more drama would be just to darken the sky ever so slightly so that your lightest lights pop out a little bit more. That's just an idea. The background trees, I love the violet color. So this area, I love the violets. I think they're used very wisely, but I think maybe just here soften these edges a little bit. They are pretty soft, but I would soften them a little, bring the sky into this a little bit more. And then maybe over here, because to me, it's a little too, they match a little bit too much. So back in here, because I can tell this is like a big area with trees. Back in here, we need a little bit more light areas. So bring some of this lighter, like this right here, this light, into here a little bit, and just suggest some air between some of these trees. And then this area, which seems a little bit flat to me, will really like sink way back in there. It'll just go forever. So just a few little lighter spots, just bring it in there and make some separations, I think would be cool. And this is fine. I think just soften here. Yeah, great painting. I love that. Way to go. Okay, Alvino, hello. This is a super cool piece too. Really like this. Such a Chicago scene. This is a really great painting. I love that it's a sunset, I'm pretty sure. And you know, this glow back here is great. You've captured that. When you squint with this painting, it's awesome. This is all a silhouette. You know, this value of the bronze sculpture is, I think the value is right on. And you know, it's a beautiful silhouetted painting. I think this area steps back nicely with the sun setting on it. I think it could have been a little bit lighter. The value could have been a touch lighter. I like the warm temperature is fine. Maybe I would have softened the edge of the building and the sky a little bit more there and a little bit more here. And that would give you some more atmospheric perspective, softer edges back there. I think the trees are stylized, and it doesn't bother me. I think it works with this piece, so that's okay. This trunk is a little dark, so if you squint, this tree trunk is darker than this part of the sign, and this tree is behind this sign. So I think this sign should be darker than that tree, if we're going for true atmosphere perspective here. So, and same with here. Well, that one might be okay. I'll lighten up a hair, but I would maybe lighten that up a little bit. But beautiful stonework, soft edges, great. It's a great painting. Good job. Okay, let me see, is there a reference photo for this? Oh, there is, okay. Okay, another sort of grayish painting that was really embellished with some nice color. This is a cool little composition. I love barns. It's nice drawing. Okay, very good drawing. I think we need to think about, let me go back to the reference, big shapes here. So the barn is the big shape, okay? And then I would maybe connect this tree to it because it's in the foreground. So this could be one big shape that you focus on that is divided from the sky and the foreground. So, yeah, so if you drew this, subject, like I'm gonna draw it now, this tree and then this barn as one shape, okay, that would be one shape. Then your foreground would be your second shape. And then your background would be the third shape. And then paint each one of those either a value 1, 2, or 3. So you could, then all the values in the tree and the barn would read as one massive abstract shape. And then maybe the foreground would be value number 2 and the background 3. So darkest, second darkest, and then lightest. And that would connect your painting. It would help the viewer see the painting as more of a connected, abstract painting, and would give the painting more of a solid structure. And then back in the background here, I think is that, it's another barn structure. I would have lightened that a lot because this intensity of color is similar to the intensities in the barn. So it's sort of flattening out this area. And to push this back behind the barn, it would have to be lighter, softer, and it is cool. So I would just say lighter and softer. And then you could really maybe add some more ochres, and you could pump up the foreground with some more warm and maybe a little more texture in your grasses there. But cool, good, great subject, and nice job on that.
Hey, Christine,
Yeah,
we have about 17 more paintings to go, and we've got less than an hour. So I calculated about, I hate to put this pressure on you. I
okay,
mean, if you have time, we could go a little bit over. I don't know what your time schedule is.
okay,
But I'd say about 3 minutes per painting, something like that.
okay. How long am I spending? How much? Okay, maybe I'll do a timer on my phone. Should I do that?
I don't know, just, it doesn't
Okay.
have to be exact, but
Okay,
just keep you aware of it. That's all.
okay, okay.
Yeah. Thanks. I know it's
Sure.
hard.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
a hard
okay.
thing. A lot of things to say about a lot of paintings.
Okay, I'll
You're
try to.
doing- You're
I'll
doing
try
a
to-
great. You're doing a great job.
Okay, thanks, Errol. Okay. Love this. I've always wanted to paint a gas station. I guess I should talk less about what I would do. Okay, so this painting, cool subject. I love this challenge right off the bat. I think it's a hotel behind here. It's much softer. I'm assuming that the gas station is the focal point. So you've got it. The sign is in the foreground. It has the most detail, right? Lightest lights, darkest darks. You got that. And then connect it to this shape is all the your focal point, or your main focus. But then these edges back here, the roof of the hotel is too warm. I want to stay here, but I keep coming up and looking up at these rooftops because they're too warm and too dark. So your darker darks should be the shadows from under the gas station, and maybe if there's a shadow coming extending from this light post, or like the shadow here from this sign, a little darker. And then once you soften all that up and cool it off, this will become much more of a focal point. And then put some really hot, hot, warm lights in here to really like some really hot yellows to kind of zing up this area. And then maybe a little bit lighter in the sky here, even though it's, well, darker or lighter. You could have to experiment with that. But keep this the brightest and the warmest. Good job. Okay, hi, Lori. Awesome. I like this painting a lot. Super cool. This is a great, I mean, I feel like I just want to walk right in here. So great subject. This, some beautiful stuff going on here. This whole side of the painting, I love like this extra detail here. And I like the way she treated her foliage here with, looks like a palette knife. Really nice, loose, not too detailed. I like that. The door is painted beautifully. Maybe Lori in this painting, I think this shape is too dark. It's sort of competing with the door. So just, I would say a hair value lighter there. And then as we go back, I feel like, when I look through a doorway, often it's like, it's kind of like it's mysterious. There's always like, what's beyond the door? And then the atmosphere beyond that. So I feel like this needs to be a lot softer. I think the yellow is probably okay because maybe it really was a yellow building, but I would soften this, cool off this edge of the curb, this is I think maybe a little too warm. Put some cool into this yellow. Maybe, these could be cooler, these joints between the blocks. Cool it off a little bit and soften the edges. But otherwise, I think it's great. Yeah, there's some nice color, rich color in all of these browns, and I think it's a really good job. So way to go. Awesome. Love it. Okay, this is great. I love this painting. So I love just, this is very stylistic. It reminds me of Sumi ink drawings, which I played around with a long time ago, and it was a lot of fun to work with. So, I think this is really nice. It has everything, all the qualities that I've been talking about. It's, got some hard edges, some sharp edges, some darker areas with then, if we look at it in like a 1, 2, like I've been kind of referencing values in stages of 1, 2, and 3. So like this could be a 1, and then this would be a 2, and then there's even a lighter stage, right here, a 3. So the stages of atmosphere in this painting are there, and it's impressionistic, and it's something that we can see from reality. But I also feel that it's abstract because she zoomed in on a specific area of I think it's a magnolia tree, so this is a cool example of abstracting, but also keeping in mind those 3 important value changes. So it's really a really, and even the little gold touches for a little variation. It's really nice. So good job, Dorothy. Okay, Ray. I think there's here's the reference. So when I saw this painting, I've painted these telephone poles with these electric things many times, and I really love to paint them too. So cool subject, great idea. When I first saw this, I was a little, so I sort of feel like I want the telephone pole and this to be the focus, the main focus of the painting, but my eye is stopping here. Like I can't go beyond this to appreciate the foreground. So I would say definitely soften all of this edge back here. And like, you know, this is all palette knife. So it would just be take your knife and kind of smush it up a little bit. And then, you know, if you don't, I've been working with a palette knife a little bit. And what's cool about it is that like, I feel like I'm like, oh, I'm going to like mess up something and kind of ruin it a little bit. But then I can just go back over and fix it again. So don't be afraid to kind of make a mistake because it might be a really good mistake, but then you can always go back and go over it again if you don't like it. So I would soften that. I would lighten. It's a pretty dark shape when you squint. This is, I think, a little bit too dark, even though it's yellow. It's a yellow color. It's a little too dark for being that far away. These areas can be a little bit darker because they're closer. The value can be darker, but this shape back here, I think, should be lighter. But great texture. Great. I love this, you know, nice three-dimensional qualities here. Cool painting. Good job. Okay, Adriana, hello. Let me just sit. Okay, this is awesome. I love this. So great atmosphere here. You can see, look at all the levels. So we have all this warm in the foreground, and then we're getting into our greens, and they're, you know, cooling off. And then we go way back here to these very cool light colors with very soft edges. So this is really, it's very beautiful. Nice job with that. What I would suggest maybe in this painting is I love all the greens here, and you've got some, you know, blues and violets. That's all nice. Maybe just a little bit more of a transition from here to back here. So I can see it here, but I would do a little bit more right in there, just subtle. And then there's a lot, these golds and yellows are competing for attention. So what's more important here, the path or the structure? So they can both be yellow, but I feel like one needs to be cooler or less intense, because do you see what I'm saying? They're both the same. So you pick. I would, you know, whichever one you think, but I would not have these be the same value and the same color. A little more variation in that. But other than that, I think it's great. I think this is a super nice painting. Good job. Okay, we got Chicago skyline. All right. Okay, so this is, I love the abstract Fabiola. Hello. I love the abstract qualities of this painting. Super expressive. And look, and I love it. So this is a good example of, you know, not like, photos don't have to be perfect to paint from them. And actually, it's better, I think, to paint from a photo that's out of focus and not so clear, because then you don't see all those details and you don't have to focus on them. So this is great. I mean, this is a great example of just like the big shapes, okay? So see how she's got her foreground shape, great. Then her secondary mid-ground shape is the skyline, and then the sky is the background. So great structure in this painting off the start. I think because this is, I think this is a sunset. Oh, sorry, let's see. Yeah, this is a sunset. So I just know that during a sunset, I don't think that the greens would be this intense, would have that much chroma. So I would tone this down, tone the greens down a little bit so they're not so intensely green. But the value, I think, is fine. It's just the intensity of color. And then I think the buildings are fine. I think they're great. And then the sky, maybe a little bit, blend these areas a little bit more. But if not, don't. I mean, the sky is very cool. You could, if this is a little pond, maybe a slightly more, a little bit of a reflection of the sky in the pond, a little bit. But other than that, I think it's a great abstract painting. Way to go. Nice job. Okay, I think there's a photo for this one too. Yep, okay. So deep in the forest, is it the redwood forest? I don't know. Great picture and great way to make a painting from a photo. So look at those beams of rays of light coming in. Super cool. Kind of expressed that here. This is really nice. This is a really nice painting. The only thing that I was thinking that I would mention about this is a little bit more, I love all the soft edges. I love the expressive brushwork. You know, maybe some of these trees get a touch lighter as they go back. Some of these way back here. I mean, the edges are great. See how this is really nice. This one, how soft and light that one is. So maybe a few more back there. Just, and you know, the first four in the front, fine, but maybe just a few in the back would be a little lighter. Darkest dark, great, lightest light here. That's awesome. Maybe a little bit more sky. Let me see what the reference. A little bit more sky color, you know, because the sky is going to reflect into the creek here. So, a little bit more, a little blue in that violet, maybe, because the blue, I feel like reflects into a lot, everything. And it's maybe a little too violet, a little more blue in there. But other than that, awesome. Cool painting. Okay, I love this painting. Way to go, Kim. This is super awesome. I love this scene. I love everything that you've accomplished in this painting. Great when you squint. Great example of keeping this big shape right here together. And that's like, you know, the viewer can really, you know, settle into this area and then move beyond into the background. So great job with the composition. The great expressive brushwork. Love the warmth, great use of temperature in the foreground. I would say the background, I struggle with this sometimes too, where, you know, there's a yellow and a sort of a peach colored building in the background, and I want to just paint it the way my brain is telling me to paint it. But I think adding a little bit of cooler tone back in here, you know, over this a little bit would help push these background buildings further beyond here. Because see, we have this color here and then we have it here. So I feel like they're competing a little bit. So you can still keep this peach or yellow, but a little bit cooler peach or yellow. And then I would maybe soften this a little bit more, bring the sky into that, soften this edge. That'll help push this area back. And then one thing that I noticed kind of popped out at me was if you look at this woman, the shopper, her bag, compare we know her bag's white. Uh-oh. We know our brain is telling us that her bag is white, but what do you see? I see that her bag is violet. And I'm comparing it to a grayish, warm, concrete color. So if you just focus right there, look at the difference between those two whites. So I think just by doing that is going to be interesting for you. Add some violets to this bag, and then maybe this might be a little too cool down here, and then warm up this foreground area. And then, but that's about it. I think it's a great, I'm sorry?
Thank you.
Great painting. I love it. Okay, this is awesome. Yelena, super painting. I mean, so expressive. So it's an exciting painting. So great job. I feel like, you're feel free and abstract, and you like had a ball painting this. So nothing in your foreground. I would just leave it. I love it. What I think is maybe it's a little distracting that the horizon line is curving down. So maybe I would straighten that out a little bit. And it doesn't have to be a perfect line. It can be like a little off or a little wobbly. I mean, that's fine. But that it's going so far dipping down that bothers me a little bit. So straighten it out a little bit. And then even though it is darker back here, not that dark. Bring this value up one notch and just see what happens. And then just re-soften that edge. I think would do a lot, would just make a huge difference. And then I like your sky, so I don't really want to say that you should do much to it, but you don't, if you want to experiment, soften. You have so much texture here that I love, that you could soften this a little bit.
Not to rush you, but we ought to move on from this.
Okay, maybe soften that a little bit, or if you want to stay Van Gogh, keep it. Okay, awesome, great painting. Okay, how many more do I have, Errol?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 more, and we've got a half an hour. So about 3.5 minutes each one.
Okay, all right, just cut me off.
You're doing great.
Okay, cut me off.
All right.
Yeah, stop, because my timer's not working.
Don't worry.
I'm just not paying attention.
You're doing great.
Okay, hi Mary. Great painting. I love this scene. Eagle Lake, I see Wisconsin, cool. So it's, a sunset. It's going to have a dark foreground. There's going to be a lot of silhouettes, and you got that all going here. I would make this background lighter, because this dark area is this background is connecting with your midground and your foreground. And I don't know if that was your intention. I kind of feel like this should be farther away than this is the midground, I think, and then this is the foreground. So I would make that lighter. And then in your midground is also connecting to your foreground, which is fine as a big shape. But remember in Nancy's painting, even though it was one shape, she broke up that second level with, it still remained in a dark value range, but she broke it up with some, a little bit lighter colors. So some value shifts, some temperature shifts in here, just because it's kind of like a black hole right there. And you can add a lot of interest in there with cool, darker value colors. But I think if you just do those couple things, you're going to see a lot happen to this painting. So cool, good job. I love it. Oh, I'm skipping this one. Okay, oh, this was so super cool. What a cool scene. Hi, Cynthia. Was this one of your photographs? I mean, if it was, awesome. Yeah, this is great. So, you know, such a, you know, challenge to paint this. And I think you've done a really good job, a great job. What I'm seeing here, what I'm seeing is a little bit conflicting is back here. So I want the boat, just leave, the boat's great. It should just be, it's fine, don't do anything. But see how this ice, this glacier ice area is like, it's almost connecting, it's connecting to the boat. And that is a little, that's bothering me a little. I want this area to go back. So you've used the same value and intensity of this, I think it's ivory black or whatever dark color it is. You've used the same here as you have, you know, here and here. This needs to be lighter, I feel like. Even if you don't change the color, change the value so that this whole area becomes softer and lighter. So I think that will make and there's a lot of texture in there. And even though I know there is texture there, it needs to be softened up so that your boat becomes the focal point and your eye just fades back into that glacial, icy area. Foreground's great. Everything else is great. I think that's really, I would just try that and then go from there. Nice job.
Thank you.
Mary, no, okay, another one of Mary's. Is this yours? Great, love all the soft edges in this.
It's Richard.
Oh, okay, it says married. Oh, Richard, okay, here it says Richard, okay. Okay, love how soft it is. Great brushwork. I like the texture in the foreground here, that's nice. I feel like the painting needs to be, when I squint, I'm not sure, it's not breaking up to me in shapes, in big shapes. I see a little bit of a shape here as the foreground shape, but then from here up to me all becomes background. So maybe a little bit more depth in color here in this mid-ground. So a few more edges, a little bit darker value in this foreground ridge. And then then all of this is soft enough and really great. That's fine. I like the violets here. So I think that's all that this one really needs is a little bit more in the foreground to kind of transition you into the background. But yeah, I think this is, and maybe a little bit warmer, some hot spots. Not like these are highlights, just some rich color in the foreground might be a good idea. Okay, great, awesome, awesome painting. I love that. Okay, Andrea. Okay, super, I love the format. Great canvas shape. Really nice. Is there a reference photo? No, okay. So this is really nice. I love the brushwork. Love your soft edges. Just very expressive. What I would say is I think that the yellow, the intensity of the yellow in the water is would not be as intense as the yellow in the actual tree. So because there's depth to the, I think this is a creek, because there's depth to it and light is filtering through it, that I think that this yellow, it's a little bit too much of the same chroma and value as the tree. It should be a little bit deeper and maybe less chromatic, bring it down a notch. But I like, here's your focal point, I feel like, and I like that. It doesn't always have to be in the foreground. So that's really nice. Your darkest dark, here's some, light areas. I think that's fine. Maybe get rid of this highlight and keep your highlights here, more in the middle by your focal point. And then maybe watch your chroma as you go back. The nice, beautiful warms here, but then kind of using the same warm color here. So maybe cool this off ever so slightly. It can still be reddish pink, but just cool it off a touch. But great painting. I really like this a lot. Okay, Pablo. Hello, Pablo.
Hello, Christina.
I'm sorry?
How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you? Miss you. I love this. This is great. This is it feels very Van Gogh. It's great composition. I love these. Are they like some sort of evergreen or?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So this painting, great composition, great, when I squint, there's some good compositional form breaking up here and there. Maybe, I want to say that, I don't know how far back this goes, but I feel like we need some more recession from here to there. So, a little less chroma here, a little bit more violet, or a little bit, some blues or violets way back here. It can still be light, but, or this a little bit darker, richer. If you want our eye to go here, and if the sun was here, then maybe this a little bit of one value deeper, so that we can, because to me this is reading all like one big plane, and I feel like I want it to lay down flatter. So either this one darker or this one lighter, cooler. And then I love these. I think these are great shapes, and I can't tell exactly, but like I think this one has some violet in it, which I really like. And then depending on where this one is, maybe a little bit more color in these two, in this one. And then maybe I love this violet color back here, this pink violet, but you could vary it a little bit to give it a little bit more form. But yeah, I love the sky, love all the texture. I love the structure back here. It's awesome. Wait, that's cool. Is that a cactus? Looks like a cactus.
Yes.
Cool. I love it. Nice job.
Thank you, Christina.
Okay. Oh, this is Errol. Awesome. Great. I love this painting, Errol. I've
Thanks, Christina.
painted that sign so many times. So this is great. I don't have much to critique. I love your subtle, there's a great subtle division between this shadow side of the building and the light side. That's great. Love all the brush or the palette knife work. All the soft edges are great. Maybe these windshields would have a little more blue in them
Mhm.
and not just black. And then get a little, you're sort of doing it, but maybe get a little lighter. Like this one should be the darkest, and then they subtly get less, the value decreases as you go back. Yeah, I want to see some reflectiveness in there, I think. It's kind of like a hole. And then, I mean, all this is just great. I guess with the background, I mean, I see a lot of your underpainting coming through, which I love, but maybe, I don't know, I like it the way it is, but what I would do is I would probably create a little bit more of you could still be an abstract shape, but I'm like losing a little bit of what's going on here. Not sure if that's a tree or a telephone pole, but a little bit more, you know, defining of what's going on up there. That dumb thing keeps coming up. But other than that, oh, and this is kind of dark. I don't know what that is. Errol, is that part of a building?
Who knows? You know, it's
Okay.
it's probably a tree more than likely, and
Okay.
yeah, and I appreciate your comments. I think you're spot on. That has to be lighter and pushed back quite a bit.
Yeah. And then once if you put your fingers over that, look at,
Right.
just get rid of that. And then you see all these more intense, darker areas. This is conflicting, you know.
Right.
Right there.
Right.
So
Okay.
good job. Awesome.
Yeah.
I love it. Is that it or more?
I think there's one more.
Okay. Okay, cool. Wow, this is really nice. Hi, Rich. This is great. I love this. Is that a pastel?
No, that's oil.
It's oil? Okay. Super nice. I mean, this is a great example of, like, there's 3 levels of values here. Like, you squint, this is his foreground, then he's got a midground, and then this, you know, the light on this, it's a church on the background. It's abstractly done, and I really like that. I like the soft edges. You know, the trees. Springtime trees are challenging, and artists want to paint every twig, but this is a great way to approach that. So that's really nice. Look at the intensity on Rich's street lights. Look at how he reserved that hot, for some of the people who painted those paintings with a lot of gold, with night scenes and lights, and some of the paintings were all gold, and it was hard to focus. But look at how nice he focused those hot spots just right there. And look at how important that becomes now. That's great. And look at how cool his painting goes back in the distance. And it's still cool here, but he's got enough warm. He's got enough warm to hold it together here, these reds and siennas in here. So this is really nice. I don't know. I think this has a lot of great qualities to it. There's not much that I really want to critique. I guess, you know, because you've got some really nice detail here, maybe there should be a little bit more detail here. This looks like almost unfinished just because you have all this detail. So pick one or the other. Either keep all of it really loose like this, or bring this detail all the way up because it's all in the same plane. And I think that's all you have to do to the painting. Put some nice edges and detail right in here. And then it's done. Great. I love that. Nice job.
Thank you.
Christina, record time. You get a gold medal.
Sorry.
You really turned on the strokes there at the end, like when you used to swim.
Oh, okay.
So anyways, it's 2:15 or 2:14. We go to 2:30. Christine, do you still have 15 minutes?
Sure.
If anybody has, well, a couple things. Christina, maybe do you have a couple paintings available you'd like to show?
Well, sure.
You want to hold up a painting?
Okay, let me go get one. It's right here. Hold on.
Computer-
All right. There's been some comments on the chat about Christine having her website. Her website is Christina Body. That's Christina as it sounds, and Body, B-O-D-Y, fineart.com, right, Christina?
It's just ChristinaBody.com.
Oh, ChristinaBody.com, okay.
It's a little too close.
Can you
Oh,
pull it
it's-
back a little bit?
Is there too much glare?
No,
Perfect.
it's not bad. Back, can you go back a little bit more?
Yeah.
Another 6 inches or more. Drop it down a little bit. That's good.
Is there too much glare?
A little bit, but you know, we get the idea.
So this painting, is that better?
Yeah, maybe turn it to angle towards your body a little bit. Where's the light coming from?
Well, is that better?
Yes.
Yeah, that's about as good as it's gonna get, so we can see it.
This is one of the paintings. It's a Ozinga asphalt plant that they set up on the highway when they're repaving roads. And I really liked it because I just liked the big shape. And you see how, it might be hard to tell, but there's, you know, it still reads as one big shape, but there's subtle temperature shifts and color changes within that shape. And then I treated, you know, it's a sunset. So then I treated my background as a whole, you know, separate shape around it. And then, you know, the foreground is like another value. So that's one. And I have one more. Okay.
So Christina, I have a question for you. So
Okay.
when that last painting you did, which is a beautiful painting, and I imagine you took a photo reference of it, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. And then when you start, so the painting inspired you. You had a concept, I imagine, that you wanted that backlit scene going on with the sunset behind it. But as far as the way you divided the space and the composition, do you do some thumbnail sketches, or do you do little studies?
I do. Not all of the time, but lately I've been doing more because I've been taking more workshops with, you know, great, amazing artists. And, you know, I'm just learning that that's what they do. And not only, and it's the right way to do it. So I feel like I'm in too much of a rush, too much in a hurry. I just want to quick paint and do it. But I really realized that the more of those little sketches, those thumbnails, those no-tan drawings that I do ahead of time, it saves so much time in the end, because then I take away a lot of my trial and error and my experimenting when I'm actually doing the painting. I mean, if you can get that value structure down right off the bat, then it's like, it answers like half the questions for you when you're painting the painting. So I recommend it. And I don't always do it. It depends on time, but when I do it, I have a much more successful painting.
And I mean, I think that's a great point. For as long as you've been painting, which is, you know, even though you're young, you've been painting a long time, and you're still learning, you're still taking workshops, and
Oh, yeah.
we're all trying to still get there no matter what level we're at. And we're all in the same journey. So I think that's like really good advice for some of our newer painters, that, you know, there really is no end to the road. It's only over when it's really over.
Yeah, right. When you check out.
Yeah. And so the little no-tans you're doing, are you doing those like little thumbnail, like 3" by 3"?
Yeah, like here, I have a sketchbook right here. So like can you see this?
Yeah, yeah. Lift it up a little bit. That's good, yeah.
So that's just like, those are some buildings,
Mm-hmm.
and this is the reflection in the water.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. But then when I start the painting, I know exactly my value structure, and I just hang on to that.
That's great. That's and then there was a question from the audience. Who are some of your, who are you taking workshops with, and who are some of your influences?
I just took a workshop with DK Palachek.
I know Dee, great painter.
Yeah, she's awesome. She's a great teacher. She was, I had a great experience with her. So I recommend her. I love the late Ken Oster. He's one of my favorites. And I took a workshop with him a long time ago. I love Kim English. He's awesome.
Yeah, great.
Right. Jennifer McChristensen.
Very good. Yeah.
She's awesome. But then I like, as far as the masters go, Sargent. I love Soroya, Homer, Hopper. And then my abstract side of me likes Wayne Thiebaud. Who else? There's a bunch of, I forgot them all, but some abstract artists I've been looking at lately. So I like different artists for different styles. I think it's good to experiment with different styles. That's where I am now. I don't have a lot to show because I'm in like this very experimental stage, and I don't know where it's going, but I needed to make a change and try, some new things. So,
but isn't that the path that all great artists have taken in their lives, where they were painting a certain way and they just kept expanding and taking chances and taking risks and not knowing what the exact outcome was going to be, and that's the way to find something new.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. That's exactly what I'm doing. So yeah.
That's great. Any other questions, anybody? If you want to unmute your mic, maybe if someone has a question, we have a few minutes.
This is Mary. I'll say this between the pounding that DK has agreed to be one of our guest artists on here. We're just trying to find a date.
Oh, good. Oh, awesome.
Great.
She's great. Super fun.
So, so I have a question for you. I know a little bit about your past, not a lot, but I know that you started painting downstate, and and maybe that's not you, it was someone else. But what role does plein air painting, or has plein air painting, what part has it played for you, and how big of a part has it played for you in your overall art output, and how you've developed as an artist?
Well, that also has gone in phases for me. So when Scott and I when we met and then just started hanging out in the city and plein air painting, I had just spent the previous 10 years, maybe 7 years out of college, just working in my studio. So when I met Scott and he was like, let's go out and paint in the city, I'm like, okay, cool. I had done a little bit of plein air painting in college, but it was I thought it was like schooling. It was to learn with our professor, but it never dawned on me like, okay, I guess I can go out and paint. And Scott, it was his idea, and I'm like, okay, let's do it. And so once we did, I went with them and we went a couple times, I was hooked. So then I think I pretty much strictly plein air painted for about 10 years. And I mean, I would say maybe I did 10% in my studio. I was doing self-portraits at the time, and I was still doing some work in my studio, but I would really say my focus was plein air painting for about 10 years. And then I started to have kids. So then that shifted. I couldn't work outside anymore. I didn't have as much time. So it shifted me into working into the studio more. But the plein air painting, I mean, from being a non-plein air painter to plein air painting for 10 years, and then going back into the studio was like a world of knowledge. Like you don't even have to go to college. You just have to paint. So I learned, like now I could approach my studio paintings with so much more knowledge of light and temperature and just in memory. I can paint a figure. I can just make up a figure in my paintings now because I've painted so many people. I mean, they're not super, detailed or realistic, but I can whip in a figure that's pretty abstract, no problem. But that's just because I've painted so many of them out from life. And same with like cars and certain objects. You just get good at it the more you do it. And it's with anything, whether you're a musician or a painter, writer. I would imagine it's just the more you do it, the better you get. So now my kids are older and I can start getting back outside, and I can't wait because even though I'm in an experimental stage right now, I still need to check back in. It's like review to go back and paint from life and reset some of those things that I learned from plein air painting back into my brain so that they flow out of my head more naturally when I'm in the studio. So it's a constant thing that I'll probably do forever.
That's great. Scott, years ago, he told me that when he was living in Chicago and he was going to the Palette and Chisel and doing a lot of open studios and painting the figures, he said he could look around the room and look at all the painters, and there's a lot of good painters up there, but he could tell which ones had done a lot of plein air painting because they were like more efficient with their thought processes and could get things down quicker. Speed, of course, is not the the end goal, but there is a certain amount, as you just said, of goodness that plein air painting brings to studio painting as well.
Yeah, it takes some of the work out of it because it's embedded in your brain. Like you don't have to struggle as much,
right?
Because you've practiced it in the field.
Okay, let's see. Everybody's thanking you, Christina.
Okay, thanks.
Thank
you. Thanks. I'm sorry. Sorry about the interruption.
Thank you.
Sorry, it happens.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great job, Christina.
Thank you so much.
Thanks a
Okay.
lot, Christina.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.
You're welcome.
Thank you a lot. That was great.
If you're interested, look for Mary's email on the painting event on Tuesday.
Okay.
Where we're all going to paint the same photograph in our own style. It should be a lot of fun. So we'll actually be painting.
I like that idea.
Yeah,
I think that'd be great. I'd love to do it.
And I picked out a reference photo that has sky, water, and buildings.
Okay, cool.
But I'm not telling you where.
Fine. So one of my big issues is that I get frozen because I can't decide what to paint. And it's one thing that Dee told me. She's like, stop thinking about it and just do it because you're wasting so much time deciding. So I love that you're doing this because I don't have to make a decision. I'm just going to paint what you propose. So it's great.
It was almost like the Cuba trip, right?
Yes, absolutely. Loved it.
Okay, guys. Thanks a lot. I'm going to end the meeting now.
Thanks, Earl.
Bye.
Bye.
You're welcome. Bye.
And Mary.
Thank you.
Okay. Ending.
Thanks, Errol.
Okay.
Thanks,
Bye, Laura.
Christina.
Okay.
Thank you, Errol.
Oh, you're welcome. Ending the meeting. Bye.